Title: The Man Who Became What He Condemned, the hidden truth behind Nigeria's endless crisis. He was once the voice of the people, the man who shouted, "Enough is enough," when others were afraid. He led the streets. He raised a flag. He condemned a government that failed its people. But today, that same man sits on the throne he once cursed, and the pain he promised to end has only grown louder. This is not just the story of a man. It is the story of a nation trapped in its own circle of betrayal. The beginning of hope. January 2012. The beginning of fire. The Nigerian government, under President Goodluck Jonathan, announced an increase in fuel prices. Overnight, transport fares doubled. Food prices followed. The streets erupted in protest. Men and women from every corner of the country marched, shouting for justice. And in the crowd stood a powerful voice, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, condemning the president's decision. "This is wickedness," he said. "This is not leadership." The people cheered. They believed the Savior had risen among them. They thought he understood their pain. The fall of trust. But what followed was not the dawn of justice. It was the birth of a new deception. The protest ended. The government stood firm. And the same men who shouted for change returned to the table of power. A new alliance was born, political power disguised as public service. The same people who criticized the system began preparing to inherit it. The people didn't know it then, but their hope had just been sold. The promise of change. Then came 2015, a new era. A retired general, Muhammadu Buhari, stood before the nation and promised what every Nigerian longed to hear: change. He vowed to crush corruption, restore the economy, and defeat terrorism. Bola Tinubu became the architect of this promise. Together, they convinced millions that hope had finally arrived. And once again, Nigerians believed. They waited for miracles. But what came instead was silence, blood, and hunger. The years of blood. Under Buhari's rule, Nigeria descended deeper into darkness. Farmers were driven off their lands by bandits. Villagers were slaughtered in Zamfara, Niger, and Kaduna. Soldiers died without weapons strong enough to fight. The government promised action, but offered only condolences. Meanwhile, fuel prices kept rising, the naira kept falling, and hunger became a way of life. Yet those who spoke up were silenced. Journalists arrested, protesters tear-gassed, and activists buried under labels of troublemakers. The return of the protester. 2023. History repeats itself. The same man who once protested the suffering of the people is now the one in power. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the voice of outrage, becomes president. And in just months, the fuel subsidy is gone again. Prices soar beyond imagination. A bag of rice that once cost 30,000 Nigerian nairas now nears 80,000 Nigerian nairas. Electricity bills triple. Transport costs crush the working class. And the man who once screamed against injustice now says, "Let them endure. It's a necessary pain." The irony is complete. The protester has become the silence he once condemned. The billions that vanished. Every 10-year promises development. Every government signs billion-naira contracts to fix the same roads, build the same hospitals, and repair the same power grid. But year after year, the roads remain broken. The hospitals are still empty, and the power never stays on. The billions vanish into the air, or rather, into the pockets of the powerful. While mothers die in childbirth, politicians' children give birth in London. While students learn under leaking roofs, ministers' sons study abroad. The government calls it progress. But progress for who? The villages that vanished. In Niger, Kaduna, Zamfara, whole villages have disappeared. Bandits rule the farmlands. Farmers cannot plant. Families flee at midnight, leaving behind the graves of their ancestors. Yet the government keeps saying, everything is under control. The people are dying in silence, while those in power build walls around their comfort. The silence of a nation. Nigeria has become a country where truth is forbidden, where loyalty to the government is rewarded and loyalty to the people is punished. The system has learned one trick: to keep the people divided and distracted. Tribe against tribe. Religion against religion. So while citizens argue online, the politicians share the money quietly. And when the poor rise up, they call it rebellion. But when the rich steal billions, they call it governance. The curse of forgetfulness, the greatest tragedy in Nigeria, isn't just bad leadership. It's forgetfulness. Every time a new leader rises, we forget the lies of the past. We forgive, we hope, we vote, and we suffer again. The faces change, but the system remains. And the man who once shouted for justice now sits in silence, guarded by the same corruption he once condemned. The revolution he promised never came. The truth they buried. The truth is simple. Nigeria's problem was never just one man. It's a system built to protect itself, not its people. A system that feeds on the ignorance, silence, and loyalty of the poor. Every president wears a different face, but carries the same heart of greed. They protest to rise. They rise to steal. They steal to silence. And the cycle continues until we break it, until we stop worshiping politicians and start demanding justice, until we stop forgiving thieves and Igbata and start holding them accountable. Nigeria will not change until Nigerians do, because those who protested yesterday have become today's betrayers. The man who condemned the system became the system. Loudspeaker, if you believe stories like this deserve to be told. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your voice keeps the truth alive.